Two strikes, two outs. Pitch to Paris.
He's had a nice day, and here he rips one into it.
Kyren Paris was once a top-ranked prospect in the Anaheim Angels organization. In 2023, he was ranked number 4 by Baseball America. He actually got his chance in the big leagues. However, he ended up slashing 118 with 1 home run, 5 RBIs, 1 stolen base, and a 440 OPS. Now in 2025, although it's early, he's only had 8 at-bats, but against big league pitching, he's hitting 500 with 1 home run, 4 RBIs, 1 stolen base, and a 1.43 OPS. He's doing very well right now. And the talk of the town is all about his swing transformation. People are guessing online on what he did, who he copied, how he did it. And in this video, we're gonna be breaking down exactly how he went about this swing transformation, what we did in order to get there, the type of drills, the steps that we took across this process, as well as we're also gonna dabble inside of the weight room and talk about the progress that he made as far as increasing his explosive strength, becoming a more explosive and stronger player, and making himself a little bit more durable to be able to handle the demands of the game at the highest level. So when we first started working with Kyren, the biggest thing that we asked him, the most important question that we asked him was, why are you here? Like, what happened between the minor leagues and the big leagues that made you or motivated you to be like, it's time for me to transform my swing and make some changes to my game so I could play at this level? And the biggest thing that he took away from going from AAA to the big leagues is that there just wasn't enough time, right? And here's why. And this is something that a lot of people miss or they don't understand simply because they either haven't played at that level or haven't talked to a lot of guys that have. And so this is the same across the board for all the big leaguers that we've worked with as far as hitting is concerned. The reason why you don't have enough time in the big leagues is because of stuff, command, and velocity. Those are the big 3 that pitchers have. All right. So when you're looking at a pitcher in the minor leagues, whether that's rookie ball, AA, AAA, whatever, if you start all the way back in rookie ball when they first, get drafted and they first sign and that's where they're at. In rookie ball, guys have decent stuff, decent command, and decent velo. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there. The difference is every single level that you move up, the stuff gets better, the command gets better, and so does the velo. And for those of you who don't know what stuff is basically what their pitches actually do. So imagine like the metrics on their slider and their curveball. There are elite metrics, and then there are metrics that are not so good, right? Or average or below average. And so usually at this level, it's developmental leagues for a reason. So they're trying to work on improving their stuff, improving their command, improving their velo, so that way they can move up in this game as well. But when you go from AAA to the big leagues as a hitter, it's a totally different game because now you're facing the best in the world with the best stuff, the best command, and the best velocity. And so you have to be consistent because they're going to be consistent. On top of that, they also have all the background of what you currently do, what your tendencies are, what your whiff rate is, what pitches you swing and miss at most, what pitches you lay off at, right? What pitches you usually take and what counts, and what is there going to be their go-ahead pitch for you to start the at-bat off based off previous tendencies that you've already had either facing them or facing other guys similar to them. They have everything at their disposal to get you out. This is not easy. That's why I truly believe hitting at the big leagues is one of the hardest things you have to do in sports. Now, that's kind of beside the point, but hear me out. There's a reason why I'm going into this. It's really important. I'm going to cover an at-bat here of Kyren Paris in 2024 at the big league level. All right. And here's the big thing in this at-bat. I want you to notice how much time he actually has to make his decision because it's almost non-relevant. It's almost not there at all. Okay. And there's a reason why he does in the swing, which a lot of people will miss. Okay. So the pitcher goes throughout his windup. He gets to breakaway. Kyren Paris starts to lift his front leg up and begins his load. Now at ball release, which is the moment that the ball is about to leave his hand, KP is not in a position to swing whatsoever. He physically doesn't have the ability to swing right there if he wanted to. Okay. Because he has not up to this point trained to be able to have that ability. So what does he do? As the ball is incoming at whatever this is, 92 miles an hour, I believe it is. As the ball is incoming, now he has to get himself ready to swing, meaning he has to go get that front foot down, okay? Once that front foot down, that means he's transferred his weight to the front side. Now the barrel starts to fall behind him, but it hasn't actually started to enter into the zone yet. So what happens next? His hips have to start rotating really hard. Then he has to kind of start pulling the barrel towards the zone. Right here, when the hips start rotating is when he decides he's going to take. The ball is almost in the catcher's mitt. It is way too late. That's why it feels like that ball is on top of him. Now, yes, that's painted on the inner half, but it's not on the black and it's not 2 inches off the plate on the inner half. There's no reason for him to have his arms going up like that as if it's about to hit him, because it wasn't even close. But it feels like that, especially from the left side. The ball's kind of tailing towards you, so it feels like it has, enough run on it to actually come in on you like that. And the ball feels like it's on top of you when you don't have the ability to make your decision, 2/10 of a second earlier or 1/10 of a second earlier, right? And so that's something that a lot of people miss. And I'm going to show it to you on a swing and miss as well in this other video that we have of KP right here facing the Yankees. Now, when he's in this swing right here, what he does is the same thing. You can notice the exact same tendency at pitch release right here. I got to turn my phone over. At pitch release, okay, the pitcher gets to the point where he's about to release the ball. KP is in the exact same spot. He has his leg lifted. He hasn't coiled yet. He hasn't got to stretch up the back, and he has no ability to actually swing in this moment. Having that ability drastically changes the whole outcome of this at bat. Because now you'll see the ball is incoming now. It's making its way to the plate. The ball travels extremely fast there. I believe this one is 96 miles an hour. By the time KP has the ability to make a decision, his front foot is now down. The barrel has not moved at all. The ball is near the strike zone already. His front foot plants, the heel's down. The barrel's just sitting there right next to his shoulder, because all it did in the time that it took him to get his front foot down is he just laid the barrel down like this because he was still trying to make a decision. Now he's made his decision and the ball is directly in front of the plate. Okay, nobody has that kind of bat speed to be able to be that consistent right there every single time to be able to make his decision at that point in time, because he had to get XYZ done in his swing before he could actually put any pressure into the handle to get the barrel on plane. And you'll notice that right here, when he makes his decision to swing and he actually starts putting pressure into the handle, he doesn't do it until the ball is literally maybe 2 feet or a foot in front of the plate. All of a sudden it's in the mitt and now his barrel is coming underneath the ball and he finishes his swing. That's one of those swings for a hitter where you feel like this pitch is right down the middle. You were set up, you were geared up, ready for the fastball. You thought you were ready. And then you take a swing through it and you look at your bat like, is there a hole in my bat right now? Like, how did I miss that? You don't even know how you missed it because you felt like you read it, you saw it, and you were on time for it. But the thing is, he didn't have the ability to make his decision soon enough, to get his barrel on plane soon enough to actually make contact with that pitch. He was going to swing at that pitch no matter what, but the difference was in his technique. Moving forward in this video, what we're going to be discussing is the changes that we made to his technique to make him feel like he actually had the ability to swing at pitch release, which drastically changed the outcome of what his spring training looked like in 2025. Now let's go through and compare his swing right now in 2025 compared to his swing in 2024. Now, I want you to notice when he picks his leg up, obviously his leg kick is a little bit higher, right? And it's also a little more direct. So it's a direct leg kick, meaning when he picks that front foot up, his knee comes directly towards his chest, okay? It's kind of like an up and a down fashion like this. There's several different leg kicks that you can do, but when you compare that to 2025, his leg actually starts a little bit more open, and as he picks up, he starts to create this coil around his rear leg, which makes his leg operate more like this when it starts to come across. From that point on, in 2025, his leg is hovering in space because he's so focused on making sure he has the ability to swing from his rear leg at pitch release. You compare that to 2024 and it's extremely rushed. His leg picks up, he gets to peak leg lift, and then at that point in time, he tries to also put the front foot down, get his body in a position to feel like he can swing, and then try to turn and burn and swing from there. You can see his arms are heavily in play. It's a big push across his body, and he just feels, and because I've talked to him about it, feels rushed, but it also appears extremely rushed. Like his load needed to start 2 seconds sooner in order to be able to not be so rushed in this video, right? And so what we did in 2025, I mean, you can see that he's starting drastically sooner. Slow and early is the speed of this game. In order to slow the pitch down, slow the speed down, slow the feeling of this game down as a hitter, you have to be able to start that load early enough to where you can get to a good spot and feel like you have the ability to swing the moment the pitcher gets right here with the ball. And that's exactly what he does in this video, where he comes in the clutch in the bottom of the ninth, scores the go-ahead run from second base, and then he ends up scoring later in that game as well, and then winning that game too. And so when he does this, though, I want you to notice that front foot, as it starts to hover out, he also pinches his scap back, okay, and gets this stretch up the back. So in the moment that he actually has the ability to swing, the guy's right here. He could swing right there if he wanted to. He could take his A swing. But because the ball gets there in a split second, if that, you could literally blink and miss this pitch. Okay, because the ball gets there so fast, because he has the ability to swing right there, now as the ball's traveling through space, he just has to make a decision whether he's going to swing or not. He doesn't have to get X, Y, Z done in a swing. He doesn't have to get front foot down early, rotate the hips, slot the elbow, push the arms. He doesn't have to do that anymore. We remove that from his swing. And so now all he has to do is make a decision. So he feels like he's just waiting for the pitch instead of the pitch getting on top of him. Right? That's got to be the biggest change that we made for him this offseason, is buying him more time. I truly believe that if you can give a good hitter more time, they can become a great hitter. What happens is when you report to spring training, you start what's called inter squads, which is just competition against your own squad at that time. And he had racked up plenty of at-bats there, and he did really well. So I want to cover some of those at-bats as well to show you the changes and just kind of highlight what happened here. All right, so for this first at-bat, you're going to see something with horizontal movement on the outer half. Now, I don't know if this is a slider or cutter. It's somewhere lost in our conversations. But nonetheless, what's important is what you can see. He has the ability to hold his load long enough to be able to catch this thing mid-barrel and send it the opposite field for either a double or a home run. Again, I don't remember, but he got a lot of it. All right. Now, at ball release, right when the pitcher released the ball, you're going to see he's in a different position. He's coiled all the way around the rear leg. He's already stretched slightly up the back, and he has the ability right now to swing if he wanted to, which gives him all the time in the world to be able to hold it for a tad second. All he does is stretch up the back more by pitching the scap just a little bit more. The front foot's still hovering. It's not weighted on the floor, not weighted on the floor. By the time it actually weights and gathers his weight, he's already decided to swing from his back leg. So instead of transferring the weight to the front side, tugging hard with the hip, slotting the elbow, pushing across his body, being east-west with the swing and taking himself out, he actually has the ability to stay behind this ball and drive it oppo, which is amazing because his scouting report the year before basically just said pound him horizontal away. Anything with run like this, and you had him. And that was because of how his technique was. Now, granted, he's a high-level athlete. You're not going to win every single time doing that against somebody like Kyren. However, knowing that's your scouting report, there has to be a way to fix it, right? And this is what I see often with guys at this level is they just accept what their scouting report is. And they're like, well, I'm just going to lay off of it. It's like, no, man, we got to fill that hole. And that's exactly what Kyren did this offseason. And you're going to see here in his next at-bat, again, facing another righty in the inner squad. Now, I think that this is actually a changeup. It's something with more vertical break, you know, kind of like that down and in position. I believe it's off speed just because it looks like he's ready way early. And then he has the ability to really hold his rear leg for a long time in here. And he adjusts, okay? And he's able to put good barrel to this ball, hit it in the left center gap for a double. This was solid off the wall. Right? Now, again, the big thing in this at-bat is that at pitch release, he's all the way there. Being all the way there allows your whole focus to be on whether you're going to swing or not, which is the only thing that you can think about in that time period. If you have to get to pitch release and get X, Y, Z done in your swing, this at-bat is a totally different game. The game is much harder. The game is sped up on you, and it's just different. In this at bat now, we're facing a lefty here, and this looks like pure heat. Okay. I don't see any horizontal run, cut. I don't see any vertical break. All right. So I'm pretty sure this is just a straight heater. Here's the thing though. This guy's throwing it fairly hard right now. I'm just going to assume it's mid-nines, and KP is early on it. He actually hit this for a home run foul, but here's the thing. Ready at pitch release, the game is slowed down for him. When you can turn mid-nines into 90, that's all you need to succeed. When you can turn upper nines into mid-nines, you're buying yourself more time. Again, that's going to be the emphasis of this video if you can't already tell. But now let's get into the training tactics that we use to actually create that time for Kyren during the 2024 offseason. Now, whenever you ask a hitting coach what they believe the best hitters in the world do, everyone's going to kind of have their bias. And most people are going to talk about similar positions that hitters get into. But in my opinion, it's one step deeper than that. If you don't know how to get into those positions are just like fairy tale land. They're just good to try to copy in the mirror, but they're really hard to get to where you have the feeling that you can actually swing your best swing from that position, okay? And so when I'm talking about the best hitters in the world, I'm talking about guys like Barry Bonds, Manny Ramirez, David Ortiz, Miguel Cabrera, those kind of guys. And so when I go back and I look at their swings, and when I study their swings, it's not just similar positions, it's similar movements altogether. Okay. And you can go back and refer to some of them talking about their swing and talking about how they wanted everything head over this back foot right here, this rear leg solid. And like when this front foot would hit the ground, it was almost like an egg was underneath it. They didn't want it to be super heavy. They didn't want to have this front foot transfer all of their weight into the front side and then have to do X, Y, Z in order to swing.
Like that was an X, and I was stepping on top of.
And you don't want to crack it.
No, you don't want to crack it.
Yeah. All your weight right here.
Right there.
Yeah.
On the back leg. Everything is lined up right here. We used to work so hard on line this with the hip and this leg. Everything.
And that's a tall tale sign to me that it's not just about standing on your rear leg and being here, because right here, I don't feel like I'm ready to swing at all. I'm just standing on my rear leg. Okay. And what most hitters do when they hear those interviews and they hear these guys talk about that, it's like, okay, I'm going to be soft on my front side. But what does that mean? Because if I just stand like this, I don't feel like I have the ability to hit. I don't feel like I have the ability to swing until I get coiled around my rear leg, stretched up my back, scapped back and clamped. And now I feel like I have the ability to swing. So with Kyren, that was our goal. Get him to feel that ability prior to pitch release, but it all started with the rear leg. So with KP, the first thing that we worked on was his ability to coil around his rear leg in that sequence. And this took maybe 1 to 2 days. He was able to figure this stuff out really, really fast. And all we did was really primarily focus on 2 drills, okay? The first drill was a 3/4 open stretch and fire, which is basically where you start 3/4 open. So right now, my back right foot is angled towards second base. Okay, and this front foot, just like David Ortiz said, there's an egg underneath it. I don't want it to crack. It's weightless. It's just there to be there.
And the thing is, A-Rod, that when you line this up right here, everything is like in a slow motion.
Yeah.
Everything that's happening right now is right over this back leg, all the important stuff. And you can actually work on all 3 things while you're doing this. However, when you're first starting out trying to learn this technique, it's easier to just focus on the rear leg at the beginning. Okay. And then we put other constraints in this drill in order to make the other changes as well, which I'll talk about in a second. But the first thing is I want to have my toes kind of grip the ground right here. And I don't want my knee to move when I'm doing this drill. So I just kind of place my toe right here. All right. And all I'm doing is coiling around my rear leg. When my knee doesn't move and I take my hips over the ball of my rear leg, the ball of my femur in my rear leg, I feel wound up around my rear leg, so much so that if I pick my front foot up, I feel like my rear leg can turn me open. That's the idea. That's what the rear leg coil is. And it's the same rear leg coil that you see from the best in the world when they pick that front foot up and they go around their rear leg. They have that ability from their rear leg to be able to launch from the rear leg, because that rear leg is going to be the thing that turns them open to swing. Okay. The next thing is that when he was doing this drill, we actually put the tee slightly behind the plate. The reason for this is because I believe at launch, the best players in the world do not do what they say they do. I don't think that they go like this, okay? And this was a really big downfall in my personal career, which is one of the big reasons why I don't think that they do that. Plus, when I go and I watch all the videos of them, I don't see any Hall of Famer taking a dead center meat fastball and going like this in order to hit it out. I just don't see it. Now, that's what they said that they did in training. However, from what I see from their videos is that their barrel and their rear leg are working in unison as their barrel is turning behind their body, okay, as the rear leg is launching them towards the ball. And that barrel turn starts right here in the hands. It almost feels as if this forearm is turning rearward or supinating rearward during the swing. And in my opinion, that's what gets your barrel on plane prior to that incoming pitch, all right? If I try to cut the barrel across my body, okay, when I go to swing, and that's my goal, as I cut down, I'm missing all this depth back here, which, by the way, if I anticipate 95, but it's 97, now I'm getting blown up. And that leaves me a very small amount of time to actually be in the zone. My barrel isn't in the zone until right now. That's right in the middle of the plate, Okay. And then my barrel's out of the zone and you got to hit it just right. You got to be on time just right. You have to be more perfect. Well, I want as much room for error as possible because I know I'm not that good, right? You can be an amazing hitter, go 3 for 10, and you are the best of the best. And so I just want to play my odds. I want to hit the ball often and I want to hit it as hard as I can. Not just as hard as I can, but I want to hit it as hard as I can as often as possible. So I want my barrel on plane back here. All right, so during this drill, we put the tee back here and told him to just bang these balls down the first base line. And what happened was when he started this 3/4 open stretch and fire, we told him we want him to hit this ball down the first base line by turning his forearm rearward extremely hard. And what he did is he went on and around right in here, got coiled right here. And then his first move was to turn this barrel behind him rearward as the rear leg launched him. He just does them at the same time. And he ended up being on plane with these pitches to hit a oppo. All right. What else does that do? It also teaches you the direction that you want your swing to go to. Most players feel like this outer half pitch is the holy grail of pitches as long as they can barrel it to right center, as they should. But if I'm barreling balls to right center on this outer third by doing this, that's not ideal. I want to have this behind me when I'm doing that. I want this barrel to be working behind me. So that way, if I anticipate 95, but it's 97, or I was a little late, I'm actually still tardy, but I can still catch a barrel to right center, right? I can still win if I'm late. If I'm early, all I do is I adjust by releasing my arms, and then I end up catching it out there. It's the same launch. It's the same swing for every height, for every pitch, for every speed. It doesn't matter. So it gives you more room for error. As long as you can control your load, then this is an amazing drill, because it can check off a lot of boxes as far as how your load goes, your rear leg coil, and your barrel path all in one, right? So this is where we started with KP. Every single day, all off season was with the stretch and fire drill. But once he started getting good at it, it didn't really matter where the tee was, because he knew what he wanted to feel behind him. He knew how he wanted his rear leg to work, and he was able to turn the barrel rearward really well and then send all these balls oppo. And that's how he ended up warming up once he grasped the concept of the rear leg. The next drill that we did was called the flamingo. Now the flamingo is basically the stretch and fire on steroids, because now you're just adding in your forward move. Now think about it. When I'm in a stretch and fire position, I don't really have a forward move because I'm so rear-legged that all I'm doing is clamping my spap, going up the back and going around my leg. Okay? So that's really all I can work on in this drill. And then obviously the launch of my barrel turning behind me and my rear leg in direction. That's all great. But what about the forward move? In the flamingo drill, you can put the tee wherever you want. You can put it slightly behind you if you feel like you're going at it, right? Or you can just put it in the middle of the plate. It doesn't really matter. But in the flamingo drill, I'm still trying to coil around my rear leg. I'm just starting with my leg in the air. So right now I'm starting from this standstill position. Now I have to coil as much as I go up the back, which is the scap clamp, okay? As I do that, as much as I go forward. So now I'm trying to work on all three in unison, really, really slow. When you watch KP swing in 2025, it's literally the flamingo drill. The only difference is that he starts slightly open like this, because he's not going to start like that. That's the only difference, right? He starts slightly open, and then he picks that thing up and he goes around up his back, and he has all the time in the world. So theoretically, I believe that KP could actually swing right here if he needed to. If the guy quick pitched him, whatever, he has the ability right now to just launch his barrel rearward and be able to put a really good swing on a good pitch, okay? But when he picks this leg up, all he does is lengthen his stretch. So he just stretches up his back around his leg, and he's got a lot of time to make better decisions because he has the ability to swing right here. And in my opinion, he has the ability to swing even before that because of this new setup that he has and the feelings that he has to get into the same positions that the best hitters in the world get into. When I look at the best players in the world and I look at their technique on how they got there, we focus on three things, okay? The first one is I have to coil around my rear leg, this move, as much as I go up the back, which keeps me back as I stretch. So that's going to be this scap clamping towards my spine or kind of down towards my back right pocket. So I have to coil as much as I stretch up the back, as much as I go forward. So the ratio is 1-to-1 on everything. That gives me all the ability in the world to just wait for this pitch. Okay. So imagine now I coil, clamp, and go forward all at the same time. I can have my foot in the air a long time when I do that. If I don't have that ability and I'm just pick up and put down, That's where I can get screwed because I pick up and I'm already falling. Pick up, I'm already falling. So now I have to make my decision against the best players in the world with the best stuff, command, and velo as I'm already falling forward, shifting weight to my front side. That's not ideal. Plus, I have to anticipate where the pitch is actually going to be at when it crosses the zone, try to track the ball there as I'm getting X, Y, Z done in my swing before the ball gets there. All right, so now let's talk about what KP did in the weight room that's going to drastically help him in 2025. Now, when he first started with us, he was already deemed as somewhat of an explosive, fast, reactive player. Okay, but here's the thing. He wasn't as explosive as you thought once we actually tested him, and he wasn't that strong. And so what we did is we put KP through our weight room, through our system for roughly 3 months during the offseason, and he had some pretty good gains. And these are gains, by the way, that in my opinion shouldn't really be had in an offseason for a professional player at the level that Kyren's playing at. Yet they happen here quite often. And I think that's mainly because of how we train. So I'm going to give you some insight into our system, how we go about that process to get these results on a pretty consistent basis with our players. And then we're also going to talk about the individual aspects that Kyren actually improved throughout this process. But before we go on that, I do want to say that we separate our physical ability from our skill. And I think that's the most important part about this system, is that right now what most people are doing is they're trying to raise their physical ability where they should be raising their skill in a skill setting by just trying to swing as hard as possible 24/7, thinking that weighted bats are going to be the unlock to their career, and that as long as they have new exit velos and new PRs with their bat speed, that they're going to be a better hitter. Unfortunately, I'm here to tell you that's just not the case for most people. Now, I'm not saying anything against weighted bat training. I'm not saying anything against trying to hit PRs or bat speed in general. What I'm saying is we do not try to improve our physical ability where we should be improving our skills. So for us, we do try to swing as hard as we can. We just try to make sure the technique's good first, and then we try to do that as fast and as explosive as humanly possible in order to create more time for ourselves. So that way we can make better decisions. So that way we can actually improve bat to ball contact and things like that. And so we separate our skill from our physical ability. Our physical ability is then trained in the weight room. That's where we actually focus on our special strengths, like raising our speed strength, our explosive strength, our reactive ability, our absolute strength. These are the attributes that high-level players have, and if you raise them and you supersede what you currently have, now you actually have an ability for your skill ability to also raise. So in my opinion, if your physical ability has a limitation, then your skill will only match what your physical ability can actually output. So if you get drastically stronger, if you get drastically faster, more explosive, if you can improve mobility to a certain extent, meaning only getting into ranges of motion that you can actually get into with a little bit more, you improve these things, you can improve how much force you produce in less time, right? You can improve these things. Now you have an ability to actually go over and affect your skills. So you're taking a new player over to swing the bat faster, a new improved player over to be more explosive out on the field, right? That's how we separate our training. So with Kyren, when he first came in, these are the original numbers that he had. He had a broad jump at 8'6". I'm not going to go into all the numbers, just some of them. He had a broad jump at 8'6". He had a seated vertical jump at 33 inches, and his dumbbell bench press, which is a 5-rep max, was right around 90 pounds, and it was kind of a struggle. Okay. Now, Kyren weighed right around 180 pounds when he came in. I don't think he put on that much more weight. I think he maybe came out like 190 pounds, give or take, roughly 10-pound difference there. But hear me out now. His seated vertical jump went from 33 inches to 37 inches. His broad jump went from 8'6" to 9 feet. His dumbbell bench press went from, for a 5-rep max, went from 90 pounds to 120 pounds. His barbell bench went from 230 pounds to 265 pounds. His box squat to parallel went from 335 pounds to 450 pounds. And his deadlift, although we didn't get that stuff on day one because he was coming back from hamstring issues from the previous season, his deadlift drastically improved as well, and he got it closer to 500 pounds for this offseason. And so with that being said, he was able to improve all of his special strengths. He got more explosive. He was able to produce more force in less time. He got faster, he got more mobile, and he got drastically stronger. But here's the thing. We didn't do that by linear periodization, which is what most people are doing right now. We did that using our conjugate sequence. So there's 2 phases in our system. The first phase that the pros go through in the offseason is just called GPP, and it's general physical preparation. It's pretty self-explanatory, but what we do in that phase is we're basically just building the foundation with general stimuli. All right. So this is going to be things that don't really have a lot of carryover or a high degree of transfer to the field, because right now we're trying to just improve their aerobic system. We're trying to get them to be able to withstand higher volumes and higher frequency of their lifts. So that way later on in their training, we can get more specific with their exercises, more specific with the stimuli and the rest times, higher intensity exercises, and also be able to cut down how much rest we're taking for those exercises. So that way we can simulate more of what they're getting out on the field. And so the first phase is GPP. The second phase is going to be SPP, specific physical preparation. In that phase, that's when we're getting a little bit more specific with our exercise selection, and then also what we're actually doing as far as our rest times and things like that to prep them for the field. So we utilize three main methods when training our athletes inside of these phases. Now, how we implement these methods are also slightly different depending on what phase they're in, but these three methods are mainstays for our system. The first method is going to be the maximal effort method. Think about this as a 1 to 3 rep max. This is an all-out effort on a heavy weight with the main focus of improving your absolute strength. Mainly because as long as you can improve your absolute strength, now your actual explosive strength, which is the thing that makes you move extremely fast and overcome your body weight extremely fast, not just to be more agile, but to also swing faster, throw harder, that type of effort, that will now have the ability to increase, but it is based off of how high your explosive or your absolute strength actually is. So imagine if I can only deadlift 300 pounds, but my buddy can deadlift 600 pounds, then I'm only going to be able to move 200 pounds so fast. It's not going to move that fast if I can deadlift only 300 pounds, because 200 pounds is still close to that 300 mark. Will it move all the way up? Absolutely. But imagine how fast my buddy who deadlifts 600 pounds is going to move that weight. 200 pounds to him is going to be a feather. That thing's going to fly up and almost hit him in the chin, because his explosive strength is much higher than mine would be in order for him to be able to move 600 pounds. So often people see our guys lifting a lot of weight, like 1 rep maxes, and they immediately think, well, that's going to make him slow, but it's the exact opposite. It does not make him slow. Not when you run the system like this. The next method is going to be the repetitive effort method. Now for this method, this is an opportunity for our athletes to actually pack on a lot of size and also help prep their ligaments, tendons, and tissues to handle more force later on. So this is extremely high volume work. We never do this on the bar. We only do this for our accessory movements, and we don't do it all the time for every single accessory. However, we do it a lot. All right. Now for this, it's an opportunity for them to pack on more lean mass, focusing on hypertrophy by taking tissues to complete failure when they're doing it. You can do it with bands, you can do it with free weights, okay, but we never do it for a main lift because you could just get hurt if you're doing that on the bar. However, what these athletes actually do is when they pack on more lean mass, we know that a bigger tissue can produce more force. So it's an opportunity for them to get bigger, to get stronger, and implement progressive overload while they're actually doing it. So usually what we'll do is we'll take sets to complete failure. We'll monitor the time on how long we're able to do that set, and then we'll increase the load the next time that we have that same exercise. So now when we're doing it, we're still involving progressive overload of similar exercises, but we're able to actually stress the body and make sure that the athlete's getting a really good hypertrophy stimulus from these AMRAP sets. AMRAP just means as many reps as possible. Now, the next method is going to be dynamic effort. This is where you actually improve your explosive strength. Think about this as the ability to produce more force in less time. All right. So dynamic effort for us is moving a submaximal weight as fast as humanly possible in order to improve how fast we can overcome that weight. So it's not just important that you get strong. It's also important that you get extremely explosive and fast. And this is where we do that. Because maximal effort works the top end of the force velocity curve and dynamic effort works the bottom end of the force velocity curve, we can actually shift the curve upwards and to the right and make athletes more explosive by challenging both ends of the curve. So with all that said, I think that it's obviously really early in 2025 at the timing of this video being recorded. Kyren's only in spring training right now, but I can tell you that he made some drastic changes this offseason, and I truly believe that he's going to make an impact at the highest level of the game for years to come. I think that everyone's going to know his name in the future, not just because of the fact that he also improved his physical ability and his skill, but I think it's more of the fact that he's the right person for this. He has a really good head on his shoulders at a really young age. He's extremely focused, determined, dedicated, and I see nothing but good things happening for him in the future. So if you thought this video was extremely helpful, do me a favor, like, subscribe, share it around. I appreciate it. Thanks.